Hi, and welcome to the podcast, Coffee with the Kensington, where we talk about all things related to seniors, their caregivers, and their families. My name is Brenda Moynihan, and I'm the Director of Marketing and Outreach at the Kensington Assisted Living, and I'm your host today for this podcast. My guest today, she's been here before on our podcast. It's Laura Rotter from she's a chartered financial analyst and certified financial planner. Today's topic is all about financial planning for aging parents or aging loved ones. And before we begin, I'd like to give you some brief information about Laura. Laura Rada is the owner of True Abundance Advisors, a heart-centered, values-based financial planning firm based in New York. After a successful career managing money for institutional investors, including Citicorp and Para Advisors, Laura discovered mindfulness practices and was drawn to guide professionals facing a big life challenge and achieve both financial security and life satisfaction. Since making her shift, Laura has been featured in CNBC, the Wall Street Journal, and Westchester Senior Voice. She's on the advisory council of Impact 100 Westchester, which is a fantastic women's group giving organization, and the investment committee of the Hebrew Free Burial Association, and volunteers with My Money Workshop teaching financial literacy to underserved communities. Welcome back, Laura.
Thank you so much, Brenda, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. Really appreciate it.
So let's see, the first question, we had talked previously, and we want to get into how comfortable is someone talking to their parents about money? I mean, that's quite a sticky situation. And how do they start that? How do they get into that conversation?
What a great question, and not that easy to do. I have invited parents to come into meetings with their adult children. I often hear adult children have assumptions either about inheritances or about the capacity their parents have to support themselves as they age. And when I ask more specific questions, well, how do you know that they have the resources? I'm surprised to find out in many cases that they don't really know, because it's an uncomfortable topic to broach, as you're making clear by asking the question. One of the ways is to bring it from a point of care for your parents. You know, I know that you're getting older, and I may be more involved in decision making for you, and it would be helpful if you could share with me your resources and what you have available. And frankly, Brenda, often the parents themselves aren't really clear. Money is such a fraught topic that, I find one of the most useful services I do when I start to work with someone is they start to say, oh, I have this account and that account. Oh, I forgot I had this account. Oh, I didn't know I had that account. Oh, look, I have this small pension from a former, so if that happens with people who work with me, of course, it may very well happen with their parents, that their parents don't even really know the resources accessible to them as they age. So to take it from a point, so if you can approach your parents knowing that in some ways you're doing them a favor, you're doing them a service by asking them, while hopefully they're still competent to answer the question, to share with you the details, but it can be broad, of their financial lives.
It's interesting the point that you had just said initially, that it surprises you. We do get the phone calls, people are inquiring about assisted living at the Kensington. And it always surprises me, the adult child, when they call and we'll talk about the budget, and they have no idea. And I always think to myself, well, that's really interesting. In order to move forward, you really do need to know that. But like you said, it's a difficult topic for people to broach with their parents, I think.
Yes. And I just want to say that I make sure everyone I work with has an idea because, you know, at the end of the day, the budget, for example, for the Kensington may come from the adult child
Mhm.
if they find out, though. So you need to know, will you need to support your parents?
Right.
Is that what do we need to factor that into your financial plan, that you're not just supporting yourself and perhaps your children when they first graduated from college, but do you also need to think about helping to support your parents?
Right. And that leads me into not only supporting them if we're thinking about the future, right? But bill paying. So maybe it's time, maybe mom or dad is having trouble concentrating or maybe balancing that checkbook. And how about getting into that? Having the assistance with helping their parents paying their bills. What do you think about that too?
Well, I'm thinking about my personal situation. My mother had dementia for a number of years before she passed away, and so it starts to come up in interesting ways. You mentioned Bill certainly starts to come up in medicine management. Um, realizing that maybe they really can't keep track of all the medicines they need to take and when they need
Mhm.
to take them. Um, I know several personal money managers. And so, what a personal money manager does is exactly what you're talking about, help make sure the bills get paid, help to make sure that the bank accounts are balanced. So, they don't actually do investments or financial planning, but the day to day, the
And you
making
would
sure
work
that
with them.
done.
In other words, are you working hand in hand with this person,
Yes, so
with
I
the
would
client?
work, but I don't do personal money management
Right.
myself, but I'm, definitely have several professionals that I can refer to
So it
if
sounds
they're
like
needed.
it takes a village, kind of that thinking of, if you're talking about financial planning, it's not just the financial planning, there's a bigger picture, right? um, how about the information, the contact information for professionals, right? So it's not just the bill paying. Look at that bigger picture, right? You're talking about planning with your parents or your aging loved ones. um, do you work with other professionals also in reference to the contact information of doctors and stuff?
So before I answer that, I just want to acknowledge in the same way that we started off by saying broaching money issues are sensitive. Well, and you know this better than me, Brenda, aging parents and broaching anyway, where you're starting to question their competency in taking care of themselves when it's early is a very sensitive subject. I've,
Right.
had several people talk to me about, like, I'm not comfortable with my mother driving anymore, but you're it's hard to say that and to start to question independence. And so this entire topic is very sensitive when you may make your parent feel like you're questioning their competency and
Mhm.
ability to be independent. Because, of course, if you want them to share this information, it means that they still are competent right now, but you're anticipating down the road, and they might not see what you're seeing. And so, of course, in general, independent of age, I work hand in hand with my client's accountant. I work hand in hand with my client's estate planning attorneys. If you are an adult child who wants to get into the loop, um, those would be, of course, as you said, doctors, but those other professionals would be helpful as you move forward and anticipate perhaps being having power of attorney over your parents' accounts, if you're ultimately going to start taking over bill paying, etc. So you
So
you
what
want
about geriatric care managers, Laura? Do you work with them? Do you find that they are part of the financial planning plan?
I have not personally worked with geriatric care managers because I work more with the adult children rather than the aging parents. So they're managing the care. I'm to the extent that I'm involved, it's because they're providing financial care for parents. And so and help them make sure that they're in a position to actually provide that care, that financial care without impairing their own ability to age independently financially. It's,
And,
it's a fine line.
that conversation, don't you agree that it should also be, hey, mom, hey, dad, let's talk about the future kind of, do you want to stay in your home? What happens if, there's 100 stairs to get upstairs to the bedroom and you can't get there? What's the next step? Do we modify the home? Is it assisted living? Do you feel that should be part of that conversation?
Certainly. Again, when I deal with my clients, a big conversation, we have a lot of end of life conversations and how do you want that to look? But of course, from a financial point of view, assisted living, especially most of my clients are in the New York area, is pretty expensive. And so if you're assuming that your parents will ultimately be in an assisted living facility, that is again, that needs to take place rather than staying at home as long as you can, perhaps with home health care aides, or in a worst case, starting to plan for an eventual need of a Medicaid facility. And so that, those are other, professionals that can help arrange the assets so that over time, when there's a need for a facility that can be more affordable, that's something to think about ahead of time, because there is at least like 5 years to look back as to who owned the assets. So that has to be planned for. These are all really hard conversations, right? Like, Mom and Dad, where do you want to age?
I agree with you. And so what I'm hearing is, as you are financially planning with your parents or for your parents, not to think that you've got to do it alone, that there are experts to help you, like yourself, Laura, financial planner, like the elder care attorney, like the geriatric care manager. And I think for my listeners, if you want more information, Laura can definitely get into it with you. So Laura, why don't you give the listeners your contact information so that they can feel free to contact you?
Thank you so much, Brenda. It would be my pleasure. The name of my firm is True Abundance Advisors with an O. And so my website is trueabundanceadvisors.com. And my email address is Laura, Laura, at trueabundanceadvisors.com.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Laura. And my listeners, if you'd like to learn more about assisted living, like the Kensington, please feel free to call us at 914-390-0080, or you can go to our website. We have wonderful information on our website, including events, at www.thekensingtonwhiteplains.com. Thank you, Laura, and thanks, everybody. Have a great day.